In Revelation, of course, we realize that we have to understand how to interpret Revelation properly because it's apocalyptic literature and it has a composite use of Old Testament material, uses materials from everywhere in the Old Testament. But we have lots and lots of references to the sanctuary in chapters 1 to 7, the 7 lampstands, and the number is important, just like the menorah. In chapter 2, again, a reference to lampstand, but also to manna. Remember, a pot of manna was preserved in the Ark of the Covenant. In chapter 3, there's a reference to white garments. This is the garments of the priests. Temple pillars. These were the pillars that were set up by Solomon in front of the temple. And then a reference to the throne, which would be the ark again. In chapter 4, we have a reference to the throne room, which would evoke the mind or allusion about the Holy of Holies. Reference to the 24 elders. By the time we reach First Chronicles, there were 24 groups of priests, the 4 living creatures, those angels or cherubs around the throne of God. In chapter 5, we see Jesus as the Lamb, and that's the main name of Christ in Revelation, the Lamb. The Lamb comes and sits on the throne, and then he opens incense bowls, okay, just like the priest would do on the day of judgment, the high priest. He had to swing those incense, create that cloud around himself. So judgment commences at the end of chapter 5. In chapter 8, we read about the golden altar, and it is mentioned there that incense is offered on this golden altar. In chapter 11, you can begin to get the feel of what's happening in Revelation. There's a reference to the temple, a reference to the ark, a reference to the golden altar. Again, a reference to the temple in chapter 14 and also chapter 15, as well as a reference to the smoke that filled that temple. This is associated with Yom Kippur and therefore associated with this idea of judgment. And in all of these passages, judgment ensues from that sanctuary. Again, a reference to the temple in 17, and then a reference to Christ with a number of imagery, the lamb, the sacrifice, white linen, the priest, a crown, that's what the high priest wore on his head, and having a special name. Now, the high priest of Israel also had a special name on his golden crown, and the special name was Kadosh Ladonai, holy to the Lord. And then in chapters 21 and 22, we are told that there is no temple, but rather this city is like the virtual temple. There is a throne, there are 12 gates, 12 tribes, reflecting the 12 tribes of Israel. There are 12 stones. These are the same stones which, according to Ezekiel, existed at the creation of the earth. No more lamb because Christ is in there. And if the city is like the Holy of Holies, therefore, it does not need. But there's the river of life, a reminder of creation. And the holy city is a cube, like the Holy of Holies in the tabernacle and the temple. And so Revelation is just filled with sanctuary imagery. And when you understand the sanctuary imageries properly, then you understand what happens. Every time there is a judgment scene in Revelation, it is connected to that temple, because there is that strong Yom Kippur connotation that comes out of Revelation, almost as if to tell us it's from the throne of God that judgment begins. Now, Revelation goes beyond the other books in dealing with the pattern of the tabernacle, because he also speaks about the organizational pattern of this new reality. For example, the holy city is like the Holy of Holies. It is a cubical shape, just like the Holy of Holies. It is where God's throne is, just like the ark in the Holy of Holies. The 24 elders remind us of the 24 priestly orders in Old Testament. So there's a reason why there are these 24 elders in white garments wearing gold crowns sitting on thrones around the throne of God. The priests serve in the presence of God. The 144,000 are described as a special group of redeemed humans who accompany the Lamb everywhere he goes. This is evoking imagery of the Levites. The Levites were the ones who served the priests. They accompanied the priests on many of those duties except Yom Kippur. And then there's a reference to the great multitude twice in the book of Revelation, which again would help us go back in time and remember the reference to Israel. Very often, Israel is spoken of as a multitude. And so in ancient Israel, you have the priests, the Levites, and the multitude of Israel. In Revelation, you have the 24 elders, 144,000, and the great multitude. So Revelation actually uses the organization pattern of Moses' tabernacle to tell us that the reality of the new heavens and the new earth is the same. This is part of what Moses saw, not just the architecture of that tent, but the organization around that tent. And we covered this in the first session as well. The positioning of the camps and the tents of the priests and the Levites, all of them had a specific meaning. It was all revealed to Moses. This is how everything must play out. And so we discover that Revelation replicates that pattern. The new realities that we will meet in Revelation are based on the realities that were shown to Moses. But notice the concepts are the same. You need a cube structure, but in the tabernacle, it's just a room, but in the new reality, it's an actual city. In the Torah, it's only Israel. In the new reality, it's all humans, all redeemed humans. So there is that complete change of format, but the concept stays the same. So priests, Levites, multitude, priests, 144,000, great multitude.